Welcome to the CFL Week 19 edition of Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy. I am, Ian Cameron. Uh, you're not splitting the atom, figuring that one out. It is CFL Week 19, and we only have 3 weeks left in the CFL regular season, and the playoffs are here. So we really are down to that time of year where, we're getting to the end of the regular season. Playoff spots are being clinched. Division titles are being clinched. And there is one more division title that could be clinched here in Week 19 with the first game on tap Friday night on this week's slate. We will get to that in just a moment. So we are getting to the playoffs, the best time of year. And really these last 2 weeks, there's not a whole lot as far as who's going to be in the playoffs. Most of the playoff positions have been decided right now. It's really going to be a question of who's going to win the divisions. They're in the West, who's going to win the division. Montreal's already clinched the East. Who's going to get second in the division? Who's going to get third in the division? Who is going to get home games? Who's going to host the semifinal, the East and West semifinal? That's pretty much what we have left to be decided here in the last few weeks of the CFL regular season. Before we break down the Week 19 card, I will begin looking, as always, with the team that's on a bye week. That team this week is my Hamilton Tiger Cats, and I hate to say it, but I was never truly on board with them making the playoffs, making this miracle run. Certainly, they've put themselves in a position to at least still be alive right now, but obviously they had their win streak snapped by the best and the most red-hot team in the CFL right now, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers last week. It was a costly loss considering that Toronto was able to win, and it puts the Ticats in a position where their playoff hopes are on life support. They need to win out their last 2 games against Ottawa and Calgary, although that can be done. Ottawa's beatable right now, and we know Calgary's the worst team in the CFL right now at the moment. So it can be done that Hamilton can beat those 2 teams and go 2-0. The problem is they need Toronto to lose every game the rest of the way, and that's going to be the tricky part. Now, Toronto's got a tough game with Winnipeg, but after that, Toronto's got some winnable games on their schedule as well. Because when you look at it for the Argos, after their game Friday night this week against Winnipeg, they've got winnable games against Ottawa at home, and then they end the season in Edmonton, which is also going to be a winnable game for them. And Hamilton needs them to lose all 3 games and win out themselves in order to make the playoffs. That's asking a lot. So I never allowed myself to dream and think playoffs for the Hamilton Ticats, even as they made this valiant run down the stretch to give themselves a chance. But look, I mean, even in the loss to Winnipeg last week, I'm not here to just rip on the Ticats for losing that game. You're up against a team that is just on fire right now. They've been rolling on all cylinders at both sides of the football. The defense has been great for Winnipeg. They've been opportunistic, forcing turnovers, and their offense is back to looking lethal again. They're moving the ball. They're putting up points. Zach Collaros has found his accuracy and his touch throwing the football again down the field. Brady Oliveira could win the MOP award this year, how well he has been running the football, especially during the last several weeks during this great run for Winnipeg. And Hamilton ran up against a team last week that, quite frankly, was simply better than them. Simple as that. So, tough setback. And now they're in a position where we'll see if they take the field in their home finale next week against Calgary. It probably is a bet on spot for Hamilton. They want to win their final home game. Calgary obviously is Calgary's been bet against fodder for me for weeks, if not months, on this show. So it's certainly a good spot for Hamilton, but let's see if they take the field Friday night still alive for the playoffs. Obviously, they will if Toronto loses to Winnipeg, and there is a pretty good chance Toronto does lose to Winnipeg with the way the Blue Bombers are playing right now. And so that game could still mean something for Hamilton, but we'll wait and see where things sit going into Friday night. All right, let's get into Week 19, and we will begin with Friday night football tonight. Toronto, Winnipeg Blue Bombers, 3.5-point home favorites, 49.5 the total in this game. I'll be damned if I'm stepping in front of this Winnipeg team. And Winnipeg still has a lot to play for in this game, and they can make it official, in fact, tonight with a win against Toronto. They can wrap up the West Division as champions if they win tonight. Obviously, look at the run they're on, 8-0 straight up. 7-1 against the spread. The one non-cover during those 8 games was against my Hamilton Tiger Cats in Winnipeg, but they were a double-digit favorite in that game. Here, you're asking them to just lay 3.5, playing the great football right now. You look at the recent home games they've had. They did only beat Hamilton by 3, so maybe there is a potential they only beat Toronto by 3, but I would need more points than this to take Toronto. Now, for Toronto, this game is very important too, because the Argos are in a position where they're still trying to ensure that they are able to host the East Division semifinal. Obviously, we now know Montreal has won the East Division. They'll host the East Final. But Toronto is still battling with Ottawa for home field advantage for the East semifinal. So Toronto is still trying to, surpass the Red Blacks for second place in the East. So this game has a lot at stake for the Argos as well. So you got a game here with 2 teams where it means something to them. And there's only 2 of those games that you can say that this week. And this obviously is one of them. Let's put it this way. 3.5, I'm not going against Winnipeg. Now, I'm not making it a big bet on Winnipeg here, but I laid 3 at minus 130 at Pinnacle with Winnipeg, just in case I wanted to get the number down to minus 3, just in case the Bombers only win by a field goal. But there is still a big gap defensively between these 2 teams. Winnipeg's defense has been very good, obviously, most of the season. Toronto's defense is still not very good. I mean, you look at the Argo defense here, 4 of the last 5 games, they've given up at least 31 points. And the only game they didn't was that game at BC where it was a flat spot, and for the Lions where they didn't show up after beating Montreal the week before that. This has not been a very good Toronto Argos defense. And even since getting Wynton McManus back at the linebacker spot, one of their best players on that side of the football, they really still have had struggles getting stops. So I'm on Winnipeg minus 3. I grabbed a little over 49 and a half here as well. I just think, Winnipeg's offense can probably move the ball successfully through the air, on the ground, against a very susceptible Toronto defense. That would not shock me in the slightest. These 2 teams last year, when they played in Winnipeg, it was 31-21, 52 points scored in that game. I think there's a chance we could see this game also get over the total. So for me, Bombers minus 3, 3.5, over 49 and a half, depending on obviously which book you can get it at. All right, next up, Saturday doubleheader in the CFL, starting with Edmonton and Calgary. This is your afternoon game, coast to coast on CTV. Calgary 1.5-point home favorites at McMahon Stadium, 51 and a half the total in this game. You won't see me laying points with Calgary. That is for damn sure. This is kind of like a playing for exercise game for both teams. Both of them have been eliminated from Grey Cup playoff contention. So it's just a matter of now, finishing out the season, evaluating players to whether, and determine whether they're a good fit to be on the roster next year. That's really going to be the mindset, going into this game for the Elks and for the Stampeders. Edmonton has all of a sudden gone 0-3 straight up, 0-3 against the spread their last 3 games, and these 3 straight losses, 2 of them to Winnipeg and the last week to Saskatchewan, which have officially ended their playoff hopes. Certainly you could worry where their mindset and their psyche is. I mean, it's a team that looked like they were down and out early in the season. Then they made that little run and that little surge middle of the season, and now they're officially out. We'll see how this one goes. But when I look at it here, this Stampeders team, they are 0-6-1 straight up, 1-6 against the spread their last 7 games. They've been brutal. I'm taking Edmonton just based on where this number is. You can't have Calgary favored when they haven't won a football game since August the 4th against Toronto. That's the last time they won. What is that, over 2 months ago? In a 9-team league, this team has gone over 2 months without winning a football game. They had 1 tie against Montreal, but they have not won a football game in 7 straight. And now they're favored, not on my watch. Not on my watch. And look, Edmonton's going to go back to Trey Ford at quarterback. I think it's time. There's talk about, maybe it's too late, as far as his future in Edmonton is concerned. And I think there's a good potential that Trey Ford's going to want to go elsewhere, because I think he feels like he's been yanked around a bit too much this year. They gave him the starting spot, then he got injured, and they went to McLeod Bethel-Thompson. And then credit to McLeod Bethel-Thompson, he played well when Trey Ford was injured for the most part. But then they go back to Trey Ford, and then after one bad game, he gets sat down again, and they go back to McLeod Bethel Thompson. And of course, they lose these last couple with MBT. And now they're going back to Trey Ford now that they're out of things. So it could be time for Edmonton and Trey Ford to part ways. We still don't know if Trey Ford's going to be a phenomenal number one quarterback in this league, but I think he at least deserves the chance to be the full-time number one starter with the ability to run with the football. His pocket passing accuracy still does need improvement. There's no doubt. But I look at this game and say what you will about whether Calgary is mentally checked in for this game or Edmonton for that matter. I think Trey Ford's mentally checked in because this is an audition for him to the entire Canadian Football League to say, I'm available. I want to be a starter. Let me go out there, play well, show you what I can do. And I think you're going to get him for sure stepping up and wanting to prove something here in this game. It looks like Calgary, and you could say that, I guess, about Calgary because Matthew Schultz is going to start here at quarterback for the Calgary Stampeders. It's a guy that's been a backup in Montreal and with my Hamilton Ticats. He actually played well, albeit it's one thing to play well when you're teams getting blown out and have the touchdown he had against BC last week. But, now you're the starter. They know you're the starter. They're going to be able to game plan for you. We'll see how it goes. And look, neither of these defenses has played that well the last 3 weeks. But Calgary's has been even worse. They've just been dreadful. So to me, you're talking about a team that is 0-6-1 straight up, last 7, can't be laying points. So for that reason, and with Ford back at the helm, I think he's got something to prove. I'll take Edmonton here plus 1.5. I like the over. It's hard not to. Two teams are going to be playing for nothing. There's no real defensive intensity that I really truly expect to see. And I think for the two quarterbacks, it's kind of a showcase game for them. What do you got? If you're Matthew Schultz for Calgary, what do you got if you're Trey Ford for Edmonton? So I think you'll see points in bunches. And like I said, neither defense is in good form the last few games. Edmonton's defense has fallen off again. Calgary's defense has been miserable and pathetic for the better part of the last 2-3 months. So I like over 51.5 here as well, here in the Battle of Alberta. All right, Saturday night, a huge game. BC, Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan 1.5 home favorites, 50.5 the total in this game. This game will go a very long way determining who is going to get home field. For Saskatchewan, I believe they do clinch home field advantage in the West semifinal, second place in the West, and they would host the West semifinal. So all Saskatchewan needs to do is win in order to see that become a reality. I just want to make sure I've got the scenarios correct, but I'm pretty sure all Saskatchewan has to do here in this game is win the game, and they will clinch second here. Saskatchewan can guarantee themselves second place in a home playoff game with a victory. So I think they're going to do it. I think Saskatchewan had their little swoon, and it wasn't a little swoon. They had a big swoon, but it was a swoon that was blown out of proportion. I've said it a million times on this show this season. Yeah, it looks bad that Saskatchewan went 0-6-1 in those 7 games, but there was a 4-point loss to Montreal. They lost to Trey Ford when he got a first start for Edmonton. The tie with Ottawa was winnable. They blew a game at home against Montreal when Davis Alexander had a great game and lost by 3. And that's the game where Brett Lothar missed a million field goals, it felt like. And they should have won that game. They lost by 1 at Toronto. They lost by 2 at home against Winnipeg, and they should have won that game. Lost by 5 in the rematch against Winnipeg. So all of those losses, and it makes Saskatchewan look bad because they're losing all these games. They were all right there where they were one play here or there from winning those games. So they played better. They were a better team than that losing streak indicated. And sure enough, now they've won 3 in a row. They've covered 3 in a row. You could say the opposition hasn't been the best. Calgary, Ottawa, and Edmonton for these 3 wins. But BC's not playing like a great football team. They're struggling right now. They are only 3-7 in their last 10 games. They lost to the Argos and the Ticats at home back-to-back weeks. They did get off the schneid, and they beat Calgary 32-15. I don't know if BC beat Calgary or Calgary beat themselves or Jake Mayer beat Calgary with stupid-ass interceptions again, like he's so accustomed to. I don't want to go overboard praising BC for winning that game last week. Calgary beat themselves with turnovers galore, especially in the second half. A complete and utter meltdown from the Stampeders in that game last week. So I don't want to give BC too much credit, for winning that game last week. I think going to Saskatchewan, it's going to be a lot tougher. Nathan Rourke is not lighting it up. He's got do you know that Nathan Rourke has thrown 4 touchdowns and 7 interceptions this season? I mean, definitely he's not taking care of the football. The offensive line has had its issues. It hasn't always protected well for Nathan Rourke. This defense, thought with Matthew Betts being added to the pass rush, this defense was really going to become something, but they continue to give up, especially against the better teams. Forget Calgary. Calgary's a lost cause, so don't put too much stock into BC only giving up 15 points in that game. In the other games against better competition, the Lions defense gave up 32 to Hamilton, 33 to Toronto. They have struggled on that side of the ball in a couple of recent games. Trevor Harris and the Riders, they're starting to get their offense going. I thought it was been back-to-back or 3 straight, really pretty good offensive games. They've certainly been bolstered by the addition of Raquel Armstead in the backfield. And even last week, Armstead couldn't go due to injury, and Frankie Hickson steps up, was pretty solid in that game. And more importantly, Trevor Harris is getting more and more comfortable. 358 passing yards against Edmonton. Sean Bain is a big loss at receiver, but they've got good depth there. Samuel Emilus stepped up last week. Keyshawn Johnson is very good. Kean Schaefer-Baker's healthy. Jareth Stearns. They've got enough, I think, depth at that position that even though they'll miss Sean Bain Jr., and it's unfortunate to see him out for the rest of the season with that knee injury, they've got enough depth at that position, Saskatchewan. So I like the Riders here at your pick 'em at home. I think they clinch second, clinch that West semifinal, home playoff game. Don't trust this BC team right now at the moment. And then I like the over as well here in this game. Saskatchewan's offense, I think, is really playing well. The defense for Calgary, meanwhile, I am concerned still a little bit about it, especially the secondary. Now, if Nathan Rourke doesn't throw to the other team and keeps the interceptions in check, the Rough Rider secondary is still a weak point, in my opinion, for their defense. And maybe Nathan Rourke can capitalize on that here and be able to connect down the field against that suspect Riders secondary to Keon Hatcher, Justin McGinnis, Aiden Eberhardt, Barry Hill, and those have been the main receivers that have been getting the job done lately for BC. So I think you'll see points traded both ways between these two teams with BC and Saskatchewan. So I do like this game to go up and over the total of 50 and a half is what we're looking at here for BC and Saskatchewan as far as this total is concerned. All right, next up as we continue along, the last game here for Week 19, a special Monday Canadian Thanksgiving spotlight game, if you will. The Ottawa Red Blacks and the Montreal Alouettes, Monday afternoon, CFL football, as we always have on Canadian Thanksgiving. Montreal 4.5-point home favorites, 48 and a half, I should say, the total in this game. Now, this is the game, and look, the reason why I'm liking over in the first 3 games is just as I think the matchups work out well, but there's no denying it. The CFL's been very strong to the over the last several weeks. I mean, last week, 2-1 to the over. The week before that, I believe all 3 games, or 3 of the 4 games went over the total. The week before that, you saw, I believe, another 3 of the 4 games went over the total. The week before that, 2 of the 3 games went over the total. So we've seen a lot of high-scoring CFL games really for the better part of the last month or two. But this game, I'd pump the brakes on the over potentially mostly because of the weather. We're looking at rain and potentially heavy, heavy wind Monday afternoon at Percival Molson Stadium for this game. So the offenses may really be impaired by the weather conditions coming up on Monday afternoon. So that's something you're going to want to be aware of. I think when you look at the matchup here with Ottawa and Montreal, Montreal just clinched the East last week. Even though they lost to Toronto, they still clinched the East Division due to Ottawa. Obviously, I believe it was because Ottawa lost. Yes, because Ottawa lost last week to Saskatchewan. That clinched the East for the Montreal Alouettes. Now that they've clinched, there's really nothing tangible on the line for them the rest of the regular season. So don't expect me to be laying 4.5 with Montreal, just from a pure situational standpoint. They've clinched the East Division. They know they're going to be hosting the East Final. There's really nothing at stake for Montreal in these remaining games. They're not a team I'm looking to lay points with, period. Simple as that, regardless of who they're playing. But the problem is, can I trust Ottawa enough? Yeah, I'd lean Ottawa. I really would. I think Ottawa needs to have something good happen. And plus, Ottawa is still battling with Toronto for home field. So there's more on the line here for the Red Blacks. I think situationally, I kind of want to take plus 4.5 with Ottawa here in this game. Because to me, I don't know if Montreal is going to be locked in, knowing that they've clinched everything. They've done everything that they set out to do this season: win the East Division, clinch first place, and that East final, and clinching the home game for the East final. So I don't know what kind of, if we're seeing Montreal's A game. We really haven't seen Montreal's A game for a while. They're just 1-2-1 in their last 4 games. They've been a money burner as well. 1-4 against the spread their last 5 games. They tied a bad Calgary team. They got blown out at home by BC. They beat Ottawa, but Ottawa shot themselves in the foot a bit, and then they lose to Toronto, who was struggling going into that game, and Toronto beat Montreal. So Montreal is not a team I'm laying 4.5 with, probably the rest of the season. They've clinched everything. I wonder where their focus is right now for these last few games with nothing on the line. For Ottawa, they're still battling with Toronto for home field advantage in the East semifinal. So there should be something to play for here for Ottawa. I could only look at the Ottawa Red Blacks. The problem is they're not playing well. The problem is they're also banged up still, really in multiple positions. See if they get some of these injured pieces back. We'll see what Bob Dice decides to do with the quarterback situation. First of all, we have to see if Drew Brown is healthy enough to play, or if it'll be Jeremiah Masoli again here at quarterback once again for the Red Blacks. He didn't have a great game last week. 3 interceptions, really struggled. I mean, he completed a lot of passes, and the yardage looks fine. But unfortunately, he just made a lot of really bad decisions and a couple of bad interceptions. And that ended up really hurting the Ottawa Red Blacks in that game last week against the Saskatchewan Roughriders. So we'll see where they go as far as the quarterback situation this week for this Monday afternoon Canadian Thanksgiving game against Montreal. But I still lean Ottawa. I just don't know if I'm going to see that full focus, full intensity from an Alouettes team. It's already clinched the East Division. So I lean Ottawa, and I'd be careful with the over here because they are calling for wind and rain in the forecast Monday afternoon here in Montreal for this game. All right, great stuff. That is Week 19 in the CFL. Thanks for watching this edition of Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy. Hit the like button on the way out before you finish tuning into this video. We've only got 2 more CFL regular season editions of the show to go. And then, of course, the playoffs are here. I want to point out a couple of things as well. dubclub.win/r/Bobano. We're having a red-hot run across multiple sports right now. Profitable this week in college football. The MLB playoffs. Yes, I'm still betting baseball. It's been a nice postseason for me in MLB. 3 straight profitable NHL hockey nights, Tuesday through Thursday this week to begin the season. CFL, a winning season so far. And after a slow start in NFL and college football, we're turning things around in both of those sports right now. So perfect time to get on board. And more importantly, 1 year all sports. This offer is available until October 31st, all month long, to celebrate the start of the NHL hockey season, and also basketball, because NBA, I'll be handicapping that. It's only 2 weeks away. College basketball as well. 1 year all sports, $600 currently available. That's $150 off the regular price of $750, and that's now until the end of October. Dub Club, make sure you check that out. There's the link that will get you that $150 off. 1 year all sports. So make sure you take advantage of that. And also, that's high volume, by the way, high volume card each and every day posted there at Dub Club. If you're looking for a lower volume approach, then that would be So Bet for $9.95 per month. Get my best bets only in every sport at So Bet, and it's been a very good long-term run. In the last month, all sports combined, at So Bet, the record's been very good with the best bet card, 136 and 110 for 55% over the last month. So again, pretty solid long-term results, all sports in the last month at So Bet. Let me just add that in there. There we go, 136 and 110, 55% all sports run over the last month. So again, Dub Club, the high volume, every single wager, every single day in every single sport at Dub Club. And if you're looking for a lower volume approach, SoBet for just $9.95 per month. All right, let's wrap this show up with a CFL Week 19 best bet. We're going to go to that BC Saskatchewan game. We're taking the Green Riders, and we're going to take them minus 118, minus 120 in this game. I think they get the job done at home against the BC Lions, and they put their stamp on second place in the West Division and that home playoff game where they get to host the West Division semifinal. They've righted the ship. They've won 3 in a row. BC, still not overly impressive. Calgary gifted them that football game last week in the second half, and I think it's going to be a tall order for the Lions here on the road against this Rough Riders team. So Saskatchewan, money line, minus 118. That is what we will roll with. Actually, minus 115 at DraftKings. Very good price there. Saskatchewan, minus 115. That will be my best bet here for CFL Week 19 on Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy. That's a wrap. Appreciate you guys for joining us again on the show. I'm Ian Cameron. Enjoy CFL Week 19 and good luck. We will be back with you next week for another CFL edition of Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy.